Quick question. When I say caveman and woman, this is what pops into your head, right? The club, the hair, the dragging. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This image is a lie, a complete invention. And the real way cavemen treated women is so different from this cartoon that it might change how you see the entire human story. So forget everything you think you know. And let's find out what actually happened. First, where did this even come from? Because it's not ancient. This whole drag her by the hair idea is barely 100 years old. It came from cartoons, comic strips, and old movies. It was a joke. But we repeated that joke so many times that we started treating it like a history lesson. Meanwhile, the real cavemen, actual early humans, lived tens of thousands of years ago. And the clues they left behind tell a completely different story. And honestly, for a long time, the scientists didn't help. Back in the 1960s, a group of famous researchers held a big meeting, and they literally called it Man the Hunter. The whole idea baked right into the title. For decades after that, textbooks told the same story. Man goes out, kills the meat, drives human evolution. Woman waits at the cave. But here's the thing, that wasn't what the evidence said. It was what the researchers expected to see. The bias wasn't in the caveman. It was in the people studying him. And once you strip that bias away, the real picture starts to look completely different. Clue number one, early humans lived in small hunter-gatherer groups. And these groups had almost no bosses. No king. No chief barking orders. No single person who owned everyone else. Why? Because when you're a tiny band fighting to survive in the wild, you cannot afford dead weight. Every single person matters. So when it came to decisions, where to move, when to hunt, how to survive winter, men and women had a say. Equality wasn't a nice idea back then. It was a survival tool. And we're not just guessing here. There are still groups on Earth today who live by hunting and gathering, and anthropologists have spent years living alongside them. When they studied who actually makes the big decisions, where the camp moves next, who lives with who, they found something surprising. Men and women had roughly equal say. In fact, that equality might be one of our secret weapons. When both sides get a vote on who to live near, groups mix more, share more, and build bigger networks of friends and allies. Equality didn't make early humans weak. It may be exactly what made us successful. Now, here's the one that flips everything. We picture the mighty hunter dragging home a mammoth every night to feed his woman. Reality check. Hunting failed most of the time. Days, sometimes weeks, with no big kill. So what actually kept the tribe alive? Gathering. Plants, roots, nuts, berries, small animals, brought in mostly by women. On an average day, gatherers often provided more food than hunters did. Think about what that means. In a world where food is literally life or death, the people bringing the food had power. Real power. And it gets wilder. Scientists have dug up female skeletons buried with hunting weapons. Translation? Some women hunted too. That neat little rule. Men hunt, women stay home? The bones say it was never that simple. Never. And that female hunter clue? It's bigger than one skeleton. In the mountains of South America, archaeologists uncovered a burial from around 9,000 years ago. A young woman laid to rest with a full hunting kit, spear points, tools for cutting big game. This wasn't a fluke. So the team went back and rechecked other ancient burials across the Americas and found that a huge share of the big game hunters buried with their weapons were female. Maybe as many as a third to a half. Let that sink in. Half. The Man the Hunter story wasn't just incomplete. In some places, it might have been flat out wrong. Okay, you might be thinking, but weren't the women stuck at home raising kids all day? Nope. Because there was no home like ours, and no mom raising kids alone. Children belonged to the whole group. Grandmothers, aunts, other adults. Everyone helped. You've heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child? For ancient humans, that wasn't a saying. It was just Tuesday, and that shared childcare freed women up. To gather, to explore, to lead, to have real influence in the tribe. And here's a strange fact about humans. In most of the animal kingdom, females live only as long as they can have babies. But human women live for decades after that, and we're one of the only species that does. Why would evolution keep them around? Scientists have a name for the answer, the grandmother hypothesis. The idea is simple. A grandmother who kept gathering food, watching the kids, and sharing decades of hard-won knowledge gave her grandchildren a real edge at surviving. So those long-lived, wise older women, they weren't extra mouths to feed. They may be one of the reasons our species made it at all. There's one more thing, maybe the biggest. In a world with no books, no doctors, no internet, knowledge was survival. Which plant heals a wound? Which berry kills you? Where the water hides in a drought, and a huge amount of that life-saving knowledge was carried by older women, passed down over a lifetime. Lose her, and the whole tribe could suffer. A person like that isn't powerless. She's irreplaceable. And then there's the art, those famous painted caves, the bison, the horses, the herds thundering across the rock. For over 100 years, we just assumed men made them, the great male artist in the dark. But a researcher had a clever idea. Next to a lot of those paintings are human handprints, stencils, where someone blew paint around their own hand. And by measuring the finger lengths, you can estimate whether a hand was male or female. The result? A surprising number of them, by some counts most, were women's hands. The first artists we ever imagined as men were often women signing the wall. So if early humans were this equal, when did it all go wrong? Here's the twist nobody expects. It wasn't the cave. It was the farm. When humans invented farming, everything changed. Suddenly there was land to own, food to store, wealth to pass down to your kids. And the second there was property to control and inherit, societies built rules about ownership, marriage, and who's in charge, and many of them tilted hard toward men. So that story we all grew up with, cavemen were brutal, and civilization saved women, it's backwards. A lot of the inequality didn't come from the cave. It came after we left it. Now, let's be real. We can't know everything. Nobody filmed this. There are no diaries. Everything you just heard comes from bones, tools, ancient burials, and studying hunter-gatherer tribes that still exist today. It's not 100% certainty, but it's a whole lot closer to the truth than a guy with a club. So the next time someone shows you the caveman dragging a woman by her hair, you'll know. That's not history. It's a 100-year-old cartoon we all fell for. The truth is stranger, richer, and honestly way more impressive. Early humans built one of the most equal societies that ever existed, and then slowly traded it away. But that leaves one wild question. If he wasn't dragging her anywhere, did cavemen really steal their wives? Kidnap them from rival tribes? Or is that just another cartoon we fell for? That's the next video. Subscribe and I'll see you there.